Oh, man. Hey, guys. Hey, everyone. Thank you. I have 2 fans today. Cool. Awesome. They came. Okay. So this is my 3rd presentation here at Flight Sim Expo. Yeah, they were dumb enough to invite me again. And this pretty much wraps up the kind of trilogy that I envisioned for the presentations that I have been making here at the event. The first ones were basically about how to fly helicopters, and the 3rd one is going to be centered around helicopter controls. So that's exactly what it is. Helicopter flight controls, or that cost so much by my wife. Like I said, during the previous couple of years, I have done a couple of presentations here. So back in 2019, I did a presentation called Discovering Helicopter Simulation, which you can find at that URL, or just use the QR code and check it out. And last year, the presentation was Get to the Chopper, which was pretty much about techniques and how to create a routine for you to practice flying helicopters. Before we start, I would like to know that although I am going to talk about some brands, there's no sponsorship. There's no money involved. I'm just talking about those brands because they have good products. Some of them are here. I'll even list them at the end with the number booth. But do keep in mind that starting to look into helicopter flight simulation and control helicopters, just like with, well, simulation in general, someone will suffer. And it's usually this guy. Yeah. So, well, what do we need to control helicopters? And to find out that, we need to know how helicopters control. So helicopters basically have 5 axes. The cyclic, which is actually 2 axes, X and Y. The collective, the anti-torque, which some people call rudder. It's not. And the throttle, which acts differently from a fixed-wing aircraft. Those controls are what make the helicopter fly, so to speak. The collective controls the angle of the helicopter rotor blades collectively, so they all move together. The cyclic does the same, but in a cyclic way, so the blades do not all move exactly the same. If you want to move forward, some blades will move in a different angle than the ones at the back or at the left or at the front. I'm not going to go into details. The tail rotor or the anti-torque pedals work so in a way that the anti-torque or the tail rotor pushes the helicopter tail to the left or to the right, and that is controlled by the pedals. And then we have the throttle, which can be different in many different types of helicopters. You can have the linear throttle, which kind of acts like the throttle of an aircraft, in which you go from 0 to 100. Non-linear throttle systems, which you just go from idle to fly, etc. And then you have other systems that are not even on the collective, but are, for example, at the upper panel. And all this can be a bit confusing when you are starting to fly helicopters. You start to understand how things work, but what controls do I need? It's kind of for me, it was a bit of a journey that started once upon a time when the dinosaurs roamed the earth. So a long time ago. I'm not a young guy. And it started with this Microsoft Sidewinder Precision Pro. This was my very first joystick, and the joystick I started to learn flying helicopters with. And I have to tell you, it was not easy. So I had the cyclic, I had the collective, I had the anti-torque pedals, which were the rotation of the stick, and that was pretty much it. It wasn't easy. It was quite hard, actually, to learn, not only because I didn't know anything about helicopters, but the controls were not that good. It didn't give me enough control. And so I started looking into upgrading my controls. So from this, the poor guy started crying when I started looking at the prices, and I went to this. This is the old Satec X45. And I bought this system for a reason. So I had cyclic, which was the actual joystick. I had the collective, which was the throttle. And let me give you a tip. If you invert the axis of the throttle, things get a bit easier. It's more realistic because we actually pull the collective, and on a throttle like this, we are pulling the throttle backwards. It felt more natural to me, it felt easier, but despite this system having an advantage, which I will talk later, it had this disadvantage. I still didn't have pedals. So what I used for pedals were a couple of switches. Well, it's not exactly switches, kind of potentiometers in the back that controlled my anti-torque pedals. It was a step up. I wasn't confined to a small surface. I had much longer throttle distance to cover, so I could control the collective much better instead of just a small wheel of the Sidewinder. And that by itself was a huge advantage. I immediately felt like I had the helicopter more in control just because of that longer distance. But the thing that really, really, really made a difference, and the reason why I bought this joystick, was because if you take a look at the laser doesn't work, but if you take a look at the base of the joystick, it has a spring. It's accessible. And what I did, I compressed that spring. With the compression of that spring, two things will happen. Yeah, the joystick will go floppy to the side. That's the downside. But on the other hand, I had so much more control over the helicopter because I was not fighting the spring. Here's the thing, helicopters don't have a center, right? When we are flying forward, we are pushing the cyclic or the joystick forward. And we have to keep it that way. Unless we trim it, but let's not go into there. We have to, just push it. If we are trying to do some small maneuvers to position the helicopter on a small location, for example, in confined operations, we need to move it slightly. Having a spring fighting our head constantly is painful, and it does not give you control. My next upgrade, well, I had to buy some pedals. So I bought some fighter pedals. Okay? And from then on, things changed drastically. Is it the ideal setup? It wasn't the ideal setup, but I came from a place in which I had a single joystick with a very simple and very short throttle distance or collective distance, no pedals whatsoever to a joystick that allowed me to have more control over the helicopter. It did make a difference, and it did make things easier. Because one of the things that people don't actually realize is that for a lot of you out there that are trying to learn how to fly helicopters, that struggle with flying helicopters, is that most of the time is not just the fact that you are new to the hobby or new to helicopters, or you don't quite understand or quite grasp exactly how helicopters work. The controls are working against you, not with you. And with this setup, that was enough for me not only to understand what's happening, but also to get that step forward. I started looking at other types of controllers. I started seeing what was on the market. I started to have more contact with these controls. And I eventually, in my head, as I was trying to understand what was out there and trying to learn more, improve, and get more hardware, I ended up dividing the types of controls into three types of controls. What I call the adaptable ones, what I call the hybrid ones, and what I call the dedicated ones. There are some brands here, again, no sponsorship. These are just brands that manufacture the type of controls that I'm talking about. The adaptable controls are those controls that are not made for helicopters. They may or may not be easily adaptable. For example, there are some joysticks that you can actually compress the spring, but you can use them with helicopters, just like, joystick, throttle, and you can adapt it and use it. You then have the hybrid brands, or the hybrid systems like Whirlpool and Winwing. These are just two examples, again, which do offer some controls that are specific for helicopters. For example, both these brands have collectives that you can use with helicopters. They have pedals that can be easily adapted for helicopters. Whirlpool even has a pedal system that is dedicated to helicopters. You can use it on fixed wing, but they did it for a helicopter pilot. Granted, it's not an exact replica of a helicopter pedal, but it works. And it has a clutch system, it has no spring, so we are not fighting the pedal. We can adjust the friction of the pedal, we can control it much more, and the same goes with the bases that these companies sell. Some of them have clutches, some of them, on some of them we can remove the spring. No more springs fighting us, a lot more control. We can control the friction as well, so we can get more comfortable with it. And we are just getting this hybrid line of products that work very well for our helicopter flying. And then we have the dedicated bunch. Companies like Dragonfly Controls, Komodo Simulations, Pro Flight Trainer, or Max Flight Stick. Some of them are here. A couple of them, Max Flight Stick and Pro Flight Trainer, have booths here at Flight Sim Expo. And I highly recommend you go try out the hardware they bring. And these companies make hardware that are specific for helicopters. Yes, you can use them with fixing aircraft, but helicopters is what they are actually working on. On these companies, we have a very varied offer. The controls you see on your left is the one from Komodo, so you just place it on the floor. It's specific for helicopters, that's a specific model. You then have the Whirlpool, the Thrustmaster, or the Wing controls. Some of them you can adapt. The one that you see on the right is the brand new Thrustmaster AVA, which can be adapted to fly helicopters. We can remove the spring, but unfortunately, it doesn't have a clutch control. So what happens is that we remove the spring, and just like with the Satex X45, the spring just moved to the side. We have to be constantly handling the joystick. Now here's the thing. Do I think it's a huge issue? I don't really do. Because, at least for me, and this may not be true to you, but I like to fly helicopters in which I have to be constantly in control. I have nothing against automated helicopters. You know, people can enjoy them, I sometimes enjoy them, but I really appreciate having to be in control of the helicopter the whole time. So I am always holding the joystick anyway. My hand is always grabbing the joystick and controlling the helicopter at all times. So for me, having this problem is not actually a problem, and it can actually be a good solution if for some reason you prefer this joystick to others. The Wing and the Whirlpool, which are the ones in the middle, the Whirlpool base is the one on top, the Wing is the one on the bottom. The springs can be removed, they have a clutch system, you can adjust friction, you can just drop the joystick and the joystick will be there. You can let it go and it will be just there. The same goes with pedals. We have different kinds of pedals, and they are more or less adaptable. Starting from the top left, we have the Whirlpool set of pedals, which they were designed by Whirlpool for helicopters. Again, everything we're talking about here can be used with fixed-wing aircraft. This was designed specifically for helicopters. It uses a lever system. It uses a clutch system. We can control the clutch. It provides you a much more greater control over the helicopter. The one on the top right, you probably know it, is this Thrustmaster TPR. It's an amazing set. I really like this. I tested it for some time. You can remove the springs. The only problem is that it does not have a clutch control. But again, it wasn't a big deal because my feet were always on the pedal, so I didn't actually get to have any issues with it because my feet were always under controlling the pedal. The Wing actually I would say that they are pretty interesting, mostly because if you are flying helicopters with wheels, they have toe brakes. Whirlpool also has pedals with toe brakes. It's just a matter of you trying to find. But I wanted to bring several examples here, and the Wing is a good example of a pedal system with toe brakes. So if you are, for example, flying an UH-60, a CH-46, a CH-47, you could use these pedals to apply the brakes on your helicopters. And then we have the Komodo simulation ones, which are the ones on the bottom right. And these are more like the pedals you usually see on helicopters with the inverted L. No springs, you don't have to remove anything. They were made specifically for helicopters. You just need to get them home, plug them into the computer, and start using. Next, I wanted to talk about throttles. I want to remind you about the tip of inverting the axis. And I don't have a lot to say about the throttles except choose the one you prefer. If you want more buttons, go with one with more buttons. If you want less buttons, go with one with less buttons. If you want one engine, get one with one engine. If you want two, get one with two. It's pretty much, there's not a lot of difference between these products, and there's not a lot I could tell you about, or advise you for or against. All throttles will work. Of course, if you get a collective, it's so much easier. It's, just like I kind of find out the Holy Grail when I removed the spring from my Satec X45. And I was like, oh, wait, this does make a difference. That was my first aha moment, honestly. When I removed that spring, it was like, oh, okay, because I got much more control over the helicopter. My second aha moment was when I got some pedals. Oh, and yeah, it was hard. Going from a twist grip to pedals, I was used to controlling the yaw movement with my hand, and then all of a sudden I have my two more limbs to worry about. It was hard. There's a curve. There's a learning curve. There's an experience curve. You need to shift a lot of things inside your head once you go from the twist grip to the pedals. But once you're used to it, yeah, it is quite different. Again, I have a few examples here. The two images on the left are from Throttle. Throttle has a nice system in which you can get the base, which is the image on the bottom left. They have two bases, one with and one without the throttle, and then you can buy one of those on one of their collective heads and just plug it into the base. Which reminds me, some people ask me if they should buy the version with the throttle or a version without the throttle. And what I tell them is that, for me personally, I like to have the throttle. I actually have the Pro Flight Trainer Puma, which I'm going to show you next, with a dual throttle, so I can control two engines instead of one. Is it absolutely necessary? Because sometimes people ask me, just because the version without the throttle is cheaper, and they want to save some money, and they ask me, look, Sergio, I really want to get a collective, but we're talking about this price versus this price. Do I really need the throttle? And my answer is always the same. It depends. It depends on what you want to do. I like the throttle because I like to simulate, sometimes, not always, but I like to simulate the whole startup process, for example. And I fly helicopters in which the startup process actually involves the throttle. Some helicopters don't. Some helicopters, you just switch a couple of switches, press a button, and the FADEC comes in, the automated system comes in, and does everything for you. Like I said in the beginning, I'm more of a helicopter that needs a bit more attention. So I like to go through those processes, which sometimes involves burning up an engine because I don't do something right. But that's just part of the process. So for me, it works. For me, it works the fact that my collective has a throttle. Does it matter to you? Because if it does matter to you, then yeah, I would say, yeah, wait a little longer, get some more money, buy the version with a throttle. Is it irrelevant to you? Or is it such a difference in the price that you won't be able to buy a collective just because that extra money would get you a throttle? It's really not that important. But it's up to you to make that decision. Either way, as long as you have a collective, you'll have a greater experience. It'll be so much better to you. The next set that I want to show is the one that I use, which is a Pro Flight Trainer. This is a kind of a one-stop shop regarding controls. There are other solutions like the Max Flight Stick, for example. Again, both Pro Flight Trainer and Max Flight Stick are here at the event. This is a single unit that has collective. You can see on the image on the right that the collective has dual throttles, so I can control two engines. Excuse me. I have pedals, and this version actually has toe brakes. The one on the right has toe brakes. The one on the left doesn't. These are actually two versions of the same model. The one on the left has a single throttle, no toe brakes. The one on the left has two throttles and toe brakes. And the cyclic. It has a single USB cable. I plug it to my computer, and I fly. Whenever I have a very small amount of space, when I'm not using it, I just move it to the side. I don't need to remove anything from the desk. It's done. That it is. So after all this, I've been trying to find the best controls and talking with developers and reviewing material and helping people. I came up with a list that I always ask, I'm sorry guys, my voice is giving up on me. There's a list of things that I always ask people when they email me, ask me, look, I need help with this. What do I need to look for? And here's what I usually look for in controls. Well, the first thing is quite obvious, right? We want a good quality product. So the first thing that you should be looking for is reviews on a few brands. See what's out there, see if there are any complaints. Sometimes I will be able to provide some advice. Some brands I don't have that much experience, but that's obviously the first thing. The first thing is that, use what is comfortable for you to use. And sometimes solution like the one that I'd shown before, the ProFlight Trainer, is just not feasible because the person doesn't have enough room, enough space under the desk. So they have to use table mounts, for example. That's one of the reasons why, for example, a friend of mine was very keen on getting a ProFlight Trainer and eventually got something from another manufacturer, Whirlpool, I think, because it was easier for him, it was more comfortable for him to use based on that space. The other thing is that we should have at least control over the 4 main axes, which is the cyclic with X and Y, the collective, and the pedals. No throttle. This is the bare minimum. Again, all the throttle conversation we had, you don't need the throttle. It's just nice if you have. If you have the ability to remove the centering spring, that's awesome. And that's something that I really advise you to do because like I said before, and the thing is, there are some people here in the audience that I know for some time, and some of them came to me and told me, I did what you said. I removed that spring, and it was immediately such a difference. I was in much more control. So it actually works. At least for everyone I've been talking with, it actually works. There's a bonus if you had a clutch or a friction system. If you can control the amount of friction, it's another layer of difference on top of the fact that you don't have a spring. You don't have a spring, you have more control, you add a bit of friction, it helps with control. Here's something that is really interesting that I found out by myself, and then when I was talking with other simmers, they told me as well. The fact that you remove the spring from pedals, or from a collective, or from a cycle, whatever axis control you are removing spring, if it doesn't have at least a little bit of friction, you tend to over-control the helicopter. Right? Because you are pulling the collective, and you are pulling the collective a bit way too much, or you are moving the cyclic a little bit too much, or you are moving the pedals a little bit too much. That's a thing. You tend to over-control. And then you start having issues like, oscillations, stuff like that you need to be constantly correcting for the stuff that you are doing, for the things that you are doing. If you add a bit of friction to those controls, you won't overcorrect it, you won't overuse the controls, and you have a lot more control over the helicopter. The second bonus is the goddamn throttle that I already talked about before. If it has a throttle, that's a bonus. Again, this should not break your decision. Your decision should not be broken. You should not give up on buying some controls if it doesn't have a throttle. If it does, it's cool. The ability to stow away easily and quickly, at least for me, is quite important, and it helps me with lack of space. I work on a very small portion of my house, so the ability to use that system and just push it away and continue my working is just absolutely fantastic. So these are my suggestions. When someone asks me, those were the questions, or not questions, but the things that I always tell people, okay, this is what you should look for, but this is my suggestions regarding what system you should be using. First of all, I think you should be using a full dedicated kit if you can. Something that is simple, one-stop shop, one USB cable, everything works, same brand, plug it to the computer, and you're done. If not, go with an hybrid kit. Go with a good joystick with the ability to remove the spring, with a clutch system, good pedals, in which you can also remove the spring, and you have a clutch system and a collective. You don't need to remove springs or clutch systems because it usually comes already ready to use. If you can't get an hybrid, just get an adaptable kit. Get something that has good joystick, good pedals, good throttles, and again, don't forget to invert the axis. So these are some of the hardware manufacturers that I've I won't say work with, although I do work with some of them sometimes when they are designing their products to help with feedback. But I've reviewed, I've talked to these manufacturers. They are out there with great products. Some of them, like I said, are here in Flight Sim Expo. You have their booths on screen. I would highly recommend, if you're looking into buying controls, this year is the year in which Flight Sim Expo has the most amount of helicopter controls ever. This is the year of the helicopter, guys, in Flight Sim Expo. It is. So this is an excellent opportunity for you to go out there, go into those booths, talk to the guys there. You'll probably find me around, annoying and nagging everyone, and asking questions and trying to find out whatever is coming. So if you see me on those booths, just feel free to say hi. Ask me any questions. If you need any help with these controls, just let me know. I'd be more than happy to do it. I'll also leave my contact at the end so you can email me. I don't charge for these services. Sometimes I say, "Oh, no, I'm not charging for this. I do this just because I like to help people." So feel free to just send me an email or meet me outside. One thing that I would like to, again, let you guys know or just reinforce or reiterate is the fact that flying helicopters is very, very hard. If you don't have a proper control set, it's even harder. You're making it hard on yourselves. If you at least are able to pull up some of these tips and make them work for you, things will get easier. Will it get easy? No, it's helicopters. But it will get easier. So do yourselves a favor, try to adapt some of the stuff that you already have. If you can purchase something that is specific, please go ahead. I don't have much more to say. I would like to invite you to ask me some questions. I think there are a couple of microphones. I was told there were a couple of microphones for questions. I don't see them anywhere. But if you have any questions, please let me know. And I will be, they're over there. Just head out to the microphone, let me know, and I'll be more than happy to help you with whatever questions you have. If not, I'm going to let you go. Oh, we have a question.
Yeah, it is on. As someone who's actually never flown helicopters in Flight Sim, but I would love to learn, what is your recommendations on starting out? I mean, controls-wise, a HOTAS setup, okay, I've got that. Fly airliners and all that other stuff. Where should I start? Like, is there a particular default helicopter to start with? Is there an add-on to start with? What would be the best way to get into this?
That's an excellent question. What sim do you use? What's your name?
Mark.
Mark, yeah. What sim do you use?
Flight Sim 2020.
Flight Sim 2020, okay. Flight Sim 2020 comes with two default helicopters, the Bell 47 and the Gimbal Cabra G2. I would recommend you to start with the Gimbal Cabra G2. Can you go purchase any add-on out there? Yes, there are excellent add-ons out there. We just had Fly Inside talking before me. We have Cohen simulations. We have High Performance Group. We have a lot of different ones. But if you are starting, if you are learning, the Cabra G2 is an excellent helicopter. In real life, it's used as a trainer, right? So that's an excellent way to start. And one of the things that you or anyone else that wants to try and wants to start flying helicopters needs to know is that, for example, I'm not against helicopters that have automated systems. But for example, the High Performance Group H145 is an excellent helicopter. It is an excellent helicopter. Do I recommend it to someone that is starting? I don't. Because it is a highly automated helicopter, and you will not learn the basics of helicopter flying in the sense that you will not have that muscle memory that you need to create to fly helicopters. The Cabra G2 is harder, right? And let me tell you, you'll be mad and frustrated, and you will curse my name time and time and time and time again. That's going to happen. But I promise that if you check out the videos that I've shown, if you go to my website, we have a section about flying helicopters. If you do those things, if you get your controls up to whatever you can, or either getting new controls or adapting your controls, if you learn the basics, if you stick with it, if you are serious about learning how to fly helicopters, and you just pass through that curve, and I'm going to tell you something, I've been there. And I know a lot of these people, of the people here in the room, have been there. I have good friends here that started flying helicopters and they went through hell and back, just like I did. It's true, it's that hard. People have no idea, it's that hard. Or some do, some give up. But if you do keep at it, you will get better, and the Cabra G2 will help you. You can buy any other sim out there, or any other helicopter out there. It's okay, it's up to you. It's your money, nothing against. There are good helicopters there, but you don't need to. You don't need to. What I would recommend is that if you don't have a good set of controls, yeah, I would spend money there, but before you do that, try the Cabri, see if it's something that you see yourself as enjoying it before starting investing money. Other than that, go to my website, check the videos, send me an email, and I will help you.
Thank you.
Put up that slide again.
The one which with?
Your website.
Yeah, well, it's let me just pass it here. Oh, one final thing, I'm going to put my website and my contact at the end. I will be tomorrow at the Pro Flight Trainers booth. So if you want to check it out, I'll be there for a couple of hours. So feel free to do that. Here's my website. Here's my email address. If you go to the website and go to the contact section, my email address as well. So it's just a matter of using it. Noel, I know you. What are you going to do to me, Noel? Who paid you to frame me?
I don't know if this mic is working.
Yeah, it's working. It's working.
No comment, but I just wanted to personally thank you for your dedication to helicopters. As a helicopter pilot myself, outstanding.
Thank you.
The website, the information, all that you provide for the community. We're like redheaded stepkids as a helicopter community, but keep being that voice for us out there. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Joel. I'm the one that has to thank you guys for being such a great community. The community wouldn't be what it is without you guys. So I really appreciate it. I really thank you. I didn't pay that guy, in case you're wondering. I'll wire you the money. Any more questions? No? Yeah?
Question from online. If you were in the market to purchase an all-in-one setup for a heli simulator today and the money was no problem, what full kit would you purchase?
A one-stop solution if money was not a problem? That's a hard one. That is a hard one. That's a hard one, not only because the two solutions that, well, I have a lot of experience with one of the solutions. And when I say that I have a lot of experience, I'm talking about years of experience with the solution, which is the Pro Flight Trainer. I unfortunately never tried the Max Flight Stick. I am super excited to try it here. And I have tried the Komodo simulations system, which is not a single system, but it's pretty good. My recommendation based on my experience, and unfortunately, like I said, I don't have experience or vast experience with a lot of the controls, but from my experience, I would get the Pro Flight Trainer. Not advertising the Pro Flight Trainer, but there are a lot of advantages, or not advantages, but there are a lot of good things that I like about the system. The fact that it has a dual throttle system, the fact that you can actually customize. They have recently released a new grip based on the Airbus style of grip, and you can actually go to the website and customize. You can actually say how many buttons you want, where you want them, which hats you want, where they want it. You can actually choose the color. And the size, they have two sizes of buttons. So you can actually, select small buttons, big buttons, red buttons, black buttons, whatever. That is my recommendation, and it's not just a recommendation by default, just because I don't know the other ones. It's a recommendation that I make because I know the product. I have been using for many, many years. It's pretty much what I use daily. And it's there, it's working, have no issues, works well, performs well. Support is quite good, although I never needed it, but I know some of you that have been talking to me and asking the exact same questions, and I tell them, look, go with the pro flight trainer stuff, and sometimes they have issues, which is normal. Something gets broken on shipping or stuff like that, they reach out support, they get help, they get the systems up and running in no time. So that would be my recommendation. Yeah, go ahead. Thank you.
Hello. I just wanted to make a comment. I work for a company. We train real-world wildfire pilots, and we used your website actually to attract some helicopter. We train also role players throughout the country to serve and train the cadets, and we got a couple of pilots from your website. I just wanted to say thank you because it made a good impression.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. What's your name? Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Your name?
Marcus Thompson.
Marcus.
In
Marcus.
Telic, yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Any more questions, folks?
One more from online. This is from NC. Have you already tried the new Moza force feedback base and stick?
Not yet, but I will. That's definitely on my radar. It's something that I wasn't able to do today. Either later today or tomorrow, I am definitely going to try it. I'm super curious to see what is it. This is one of the reasons why I said that this year is the year of the Helicopter Air Flight Sim Expo. We have a lot of great stuff, a lot of cool stuff. The hard part is managing to go and check them all out. Evan, I need another day, man. Any more questions? No? I was fooled. Okay, no online questions there? No more? Okay, cool. I think that's it. Gentlemen, thank you very much. You were great. Thank you for all the questions. Thank you for being an amazing audience. I really appreciate it. And like I said, if you see me out there on the exhibition, and you have any questions, just please let me know. Bye. See ya. Thank you.